Hello, I'm Timothy Linsdau. I'm a video producer, Christian. Like civics and see what's going on in the world. Also, I happen to live only a couple of miles from the U.S.-Mexican border in the San Diego area. And pay attention to what might happen on the other side. See what's going on. And see in the paper, there's this superbug proves to be rather nasty. Let's see what that's about. Okay, this nasty bug, and I'm going to attempt to pronounce this properly, Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Okay, it's not an uncommon bacteria, but 11 people that went down for weight loss surgery in Tijuana have come down with this bug. Now, treating it, according to this article, is not that difficult, except it's picked up a gene that has an acronym called VIM, V-I-M. I don't know if I can pronounce that part, but that particular gene carries enzymes on it that destroy the antibiotics used, and that's what's caused the main problem with these 11 people. Now, these 11 folks that went down there are not from California. Interestingly, they're from as many as 7 different states across the U.S. People here, of treatments and so forth in Mexico. Some may not be legitimate, but these are from regular hospitals, and that's pretty important. One thing we're attuned to in San Diego is hearing diseases showing up. With a lot of people moving through this region and a lot of immigrants. It's always a concern that some immigrants haven't had vaccinations they need, or picked up some pretty difficult bugs in their region and brought them in here. Once in a while, tuberculosis will show up in our schools, and just guessing that that's one of the reasons that happens. Tuberculosis is pretty much whipped in the U.S., but it pops up now and again. So that seems to be what it might be. But this particular bacteria already was, what they could tell, was already drug resistant. And that the CDC is reporting this. From the U.S., the Center for Disease Control and Prevention is the one that, what they did is CDC put out a travel warning for anybody going down there for this kind of care, and that you better be thinking about this pretty hard, whether that's a good idea or not for you. One of the patients in this 11 people they reported has died, but they also said that there were underlying conditions that may have contributed to this person's death, besides that nasty bacteria. So without getting too complicated with this, one of the people that work for the CDC, his last name is Ham, said so far not a single sickened patient, of course, is from California, and but some of the patients have received treatment with other antibiotics that has helped them, but they're slowly recovering from these issues. The antibiotics haven't worked. They're trying other things, but some antibiotics that might work have such strong side effects that the victims may not be able to use them, and that's an issue. I've had some that I've had to learn which I could take and which I couldn't take, and I'm sure some of you may have the same issues. These patients underwent surgeries from August through November in Tijuana that picked that up. One case was identified from 2015. I'm not sure what if this took that long for something to show up or what it was. That's kind of strange. And a couple other of these remain under investigation. So they're a little shaky on where it's coming from and so forth. But they pretty well narrowed it down to one hospital in particular and they urge doctors across the United States to report any of these cases quickly. The Pseudomonas, what did I say? Hang on, I'm going to get it right. Aeruginosa is not uncommon, but having this VIM gene on it is. And it's that gene that causes the big problem, because it's destroying the antibiotic that's being used normally on this thing. So that's one of the problems. CDC's own antimicrobial resistance lab network were the first ones to sound the alarm of this Tijuana outbreak, and samples are routinely sent to CDC and from affiliated hospitals to analyze this. And wherever this VIM gene shows up, it's pretty serious, so they're watching that. That's important. Infectious disease specialists seek to isolate and treat patients that come up with this to prevent any spreading of this resistant gene. And that's extremely important. Quarantine has always been a valuable Quarantine has always been a valuable tool to use to defeat disease. The idea is to kill the critters quickly, any of these things carrying this VIM gene, as quickly as possible. And that CDC says they need to learn about this stuff as quick as possible. And it seems that the Tijuana facilities are responding to that. The Mexican government temporarily issued the Grand View Hospital in Tijuana to close. Now, the whole facility didn't close, so there was confusion. There was just the surgery department involved. So they wanted to get that straight. There's about 3 other hospitals in Tijuana that were involved that had treated people, but they weren't in large enough numbers for the CDC to be sure there was a problem in that facility. CDC seems pretty fair on how they report these things and who has the problems and who should be closed and cleaned or whatever they got to do to stop this thing. CDC has no access to the health records of the 11 people involved, so it's difficult for American investigators to learn which surgery practices might have caused or contributed to these infections. Other hospitals were not mentioned by name in the CDC's traveling warning, but the Grand View Hospital is the one that's mainly mentioned for travel warning in Tijuana. Only 1 or 2 people in those other facilities had been there, and they can't determine the number of cases. It's significantly greater from the facility's normal rate of Pseudomonas infection. In other words, the number of cases, getting a little confused here. CDC could not determine that the number of cases was significantly greater than the facility's normal rate of Pseudomonas infection. So they didn't have that information as to whether that was a problem. Now, the disease, it's bad news. When we think about World War I and the Spanish flu that broke out towards the end of the war and went around the world, something like 30 million people were involved in that spread of that disease. And I remember reading stories of people in New York during that time at its peak felt the world was going to die. It was like everybody knew somebody that died from that disease. So superbug infections can be pretty nasty, and it's been an issue with doctors and those companies producing antibiotics for some time now, that these superbugs become immune or can then spread to others, increasing their immunity and making it very difficult to fight these diseases. Some say over time that it's possible we will run out of antibiotics that are effective because the bacteria mutates so quickly. And that's a real problem, of course. So we're always concerned about what might be coming across the border, what's going on, pay attention to it. Maybe we feel the care is not as good as it should be, but I'm not going to make that flat statement, but so it's important to pay attention, take care of yourself, watch out for these things. Anything unusual, get a hold of your doctor. So, thank you. I'm Timothy Linsdau. Like and comment on my video, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.